The United States presidential election is coming up fast, and there are a number of qualified candidates to consider. However, there's one individual that stands head and shoulders above the rest, both figuratively and literally, because he's like 8 feet tall. Of course, I'm talking about everybody's favorite green smashy guy, Professor Hulk. I wouldn't recommend Bruce Banner as a political leader because he's kind of a timid and anxious guy, and I also wouldn't recommend the OG Incredible Hulk as president because, well, that's just a recipe for disaster. Despite both halves of the personality not being right for the role, when they meet in the middle, as is the case with the now permanent persona of Professor Hulk, the guy is the ideal candidate. Bruce Banner and the Hulk are no more, and Professor Hulk is here to stay as the best of both worlds option. So let's jump into exactly why he's qualified to sit in the Oval Office and hold the highest position in the nation. For starters, he has debatably the highest IQ of all the Avengers. The only reason I say debatably is because Tony Stark probably gives him a run for his money, but seeing as how there's no more Tony, Professor Hulk is hands down the most intelligent. Heck, he may even be the smartest person in the entire MCU. After all, he is a professor, so we know he's got brains. In fact, he'd probably be one of, if not the most educated president to date. He's studied at a number of different educational institutions, spanning all over the globe, including spending some time at Harvard. He'd actually become the 8th president to study at Harvard. That's a lot of presidents. Harvard is to presidents what Duke University is to the NBA. Professor Hulk would also be great at campaigning. He's a master at PR and marketing. Just look at how he managed to turn his negative image into a positive one. People used to despise the uncontrollable Hulk, who would rip through cars and buildings and smash everything in sight. These days, the guy is a beloved celebrity, getting stopped for pictures anytime he goes out in public. He managed to pull off a complete image 180 and develop a fantastic reputation with the people. Now that he's a lot more calm and articulate, he's extremely popular among his constituents. He has the benefit of being a massive green monster, so he stands out and is definitely memorable, while not having to deal with all the downsides of being a hulked out rage monster. He has the size and strength and, let's face it, marketability of the Hulk, but with the brain of Bruce Banner. This could very well be the path that Marvel Studios decides to go down for the Hulk in Phase 4. I mean, Hulk isn't really doing anything else right now, right? The Avengers appear to be going through somewhat of a transitional phase, and he doesn't really have a role to play in the MCU at the moment. Tony Stark and Black Widow met their makers, Captain America decided to hang it up, Thor is off in outer space, getting into all sorts of hijinks, and Hawkeye is jumping over to Disney's new streaming platform, Disney Plus, to do his own show. That leaves our buddy the Professor as the only original Avengers hero left on Earth, and without much of a game plan for what to do next. It could be an interesting route for Marvel to take, having Professor Hulk get into politics. It's a logical career move for the big guy. He's perfect for the role. It would also be fascinating to see other countries, or even aliens from other planets, try to mess with America while this guy is in charge. It might sound silly, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Changing the past doesn't change the future.
Hulk's stock is at an all-time high. He was just responsible for snapping back half of all life in the universe, so that probably made him even more popular. I'm sure that it was well worth the injured arm, which we aren't sure exactly the extent of said injuries. Now that the people have managed to reconnect with their lost friends and loved ones, I bet they'd be eager to vote for the guy who was responsible for bringing them all back. He's quite literally as big a hero as they come. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, there's some criteria that needs to be met in order to be a viable candidate. The official requirements have actually remained the same since the year that Washington accepted the presidency. As stated in the Constitution, a presidential candidate must be a natural-born citizen of the United States, a resident for 14 years, and 35 years of age or older. According to some quick research, Bruce Banner was born in Dayton, Ohio in 1974, making him a U.S. citizen and 45 years old. He spent a bit of time traveling, including some time off the planet, but for the most part, and to the best of our knowledge, he's never not been a U.S. citizen. So he checks out all those boxes. There's a small caveat that he isn't a politician, so you might think that getting into politics would be tough for him. But that isn't really a big concern, seeing as how there's already precedents for unqualified celebrities becoming president. What? That was a Reagan joke. There are certainly a slew of benefits to Professor Hulk being the president. Just think about how much money the government could save by cutting back on Secret Service costs. You don't really need to protect him, he'll be fine. Plus, on top of his brilliant mind, he's experienced in actual combat. How many presidents can say that? The role typically requires a strong military mind and has to know how to deal with potential threats, which Hulk is more than accustomed to. He's actually been out there getting his knees scraped and his knuckles dirty. That's the kind of guy that you want making infantry-related decisions, one who's actually been out there on the battlefield before. In fact, having Professor Hulk in the Oval Office is a huge nuclear deterrent. Countries would be hesitant to mess with a nation led by this guy. He's a literal superhero with super abilities. If another country tries messing with him, he'd just go right over there and take care of business himself. He doesn't have to send armies. It's just not worth it for anyone to try anything because they'll almost certainly regret it. He also has a fantastic network. He knows a slew of important people, which will come in handy during the campaign trail. He also knows and has strong relationships with a bunch of soldiers and superheroes. He's got some pretty tough people endorsing him, that's for sure. Plus, his pal Captain America already has relations with foreign dignitaries. Not to mention all the rich people that Professor Hulk has in his contacts. That too will come in handy on the campaign trail when it's time to start taking donations. Tony Stark might not be around anymore, but Pepper Potts better have that checkbook handy because presidential candidate Hulk is gonna need some assistance, that's for sure. His global relationships are good too. He has a very strong network, including a great rapport with Wakanda, one of the wealthiest nations on the planet. Now that they've decided to open their walls and let the world share in their resources, there's no telling how valuable of a trade ally the African nation could be. After all, that's where all the vibranium is. Imagine Hulk could strike a deal for some cheap vibranium from his buddy T'Challa. That's what I call utilizing your network. Now, he isn't the perfect candidate. Nobody is. There's no such thing. Everybody has their faults or their weaknesses, so let's examine what Professor Hulk could stand to work on. We just mentioned his strong relationship with Wakanda, but if I had to guess, he isn't so well liked over in Eastern Europe. Sorry, Sokovia. Hulk and his pals were sort of responsible for the complete destruction of that entire nation. Oopsie. They might not be the Hulk's biggest fans, but then again, that was years ago. Maybe they got over it? On a personal level, he is prone to losing his cool. There's been quite a few examples in the past where Hulk has maybe lost his temper. It was kind of like his entire thing. However, lately, he's made great strides in keeping his anger issues under control. I don't know what it is, if he started going to therapy or something, but he's certainly a changed man, and his outbursts are far less volatile. I'd also be remiss if I didn't question his leadership skills. Whether it's the Hulk, Bruce Banner, or Professor Hulk, he's never really been the leader of any group or team that he's on. He's more of a valuable team player, who leads by example and does his best to contribute and be helpful without needing to stand out in the limelight. While some may see his passive attitude towards leadership as a fault, I actually see it as a positive. The best leaders don't stand out in front of their squad, they lead from behind. That's where his humility proves valuable. He's not the type to bark out orders or boss people around. Instead, he's the silent leader type that you really want on your side. So let's just say he enters the race and wins. Professor Hulk is a real thing. What could his cabinet look like? Who would be his vice president? Well, he can't choose Thor because he's not born in America or on Earth. The same goes for Groot or Rocket Raccoon. Black Widow would actually be the perfect character to be his VP, but I'm pretty sure she's born in Russia, so that's a no-go. He can't choose Peter Parker either because he isn't of age. I guess he could choose Hawkeye. However, he just came off that traumatizing experience in Endgame, and he probably wants to lay low and spend some time with his family rather than jump on the campaign trail right away. That leaves just one ideal candidate. At the very end of Endgame, we see an elderly Captain America show up to say goodbye to his buddies. That's the perfect guy. He meets all the criteria, he's as patriotic as they come, and he's a beloved icon that people adore. Plus, in his old age, he looks almost identical to Joe Biden. I can see the banner now. Hulk Rogers 2020.
Hulk out!
Bruce.
Damn.
Would they have your vote? Let us know yes or no in the comments section down below and tell us why. Also, before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Screen Rant to stay up to date on all of our latest and greatest releases. Until next time, bye!